Ladies and gentlemen, Barry C here with another cryptocurrency video, and XRP is absolutely going to turn around. The crypto market is going to turn around. We still have an alt season that we need to see happen to round out this bull run. Now, ladies and gents, I know it's frustrating. I know the market's not performing the way we hope it would. And we're seeing a lot of negativity out there. And see, to me, it's fascinating because I try to keep things as simplistic as I can. And, when I first started out in 2016 in crypto and everybody was trying to figure out where the market was going, and, altcoins came onto the scene, Bitcoin was moving up in price. We first saw XRP being listed in 2017. There was all these people trying to chart and navigate and figure out where the market was going, and nobody had seen a bull run. No one had seen an alt season. And then after that happened, no one had seen a bear market before. And so people were rapidly playing catch up. They were constantly in a reactive state. It's not like now where we can look back and go, okay, well, this is the way bull runs and bear markets play out. We've seen that every time there's a bull run, there's always a first leg up and a second leg up. And that second leg up is the alt season. So every bull run finishes off with an alt season. And then after the alt season, we typically see that 3.5-year bear market. And then we get to the next Bitcoin halving event, then a post-Bitcoin halving bull run, so on and so forth, the 4-year cycle. Now, the reason why I try to keep this as simplistic as possible, because I've gone down the path of the more in-depth technical analysis. I've tried to be as technologically savvy as I can when it comes to understanding the specifics and the idiosyncrasies of specific blockchains and cryptocurrencies. Do you know where that's gotten me? Absolutely nowhere. Now, there are people who gravitate more towards the technical side of things, and that's fantastic. There's other people who are more in the finance realm. And then there's people like you and me, myself, who are just everyday people who saw a unique opportunity with crypto, and people like us who have maybe a bit more common sense approach, and we like a more simplistic approach to everything than just trying to get bogged down in the technicalities of things. And I'm not saying there's a better way to do it, because there's ways that work for each and every one of us. But for me personally, I like to break things down at their most basic and simplistic concept possible. And then that's what I build my plans on. And so when I talk about this, I'm talking about looking at XRP back in 2017. And sure, there weren't as many altcoins back then as there are now. But back then, it was the first finance-based crypto. It was a crypto that could essentially move anything of value. And back then, it was all about finance and money. But then after that, in 2018, it was about real-world assets as well. But back then, it was about moving anything of value from point A to point B almost instantaneously, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for a fraction of a fee anywhere around the world. And it was the only crypto that wanted to actually work within the existing financial framework. It wasn't about getting away from banks. It was about being adopted by banks, being utilized by banks and financial institutions. And of course, back then, that was against everything crypto supposedly stood for, which is why XRP got the reputation of being the banker's coin, and nobody wanted to touch it, despite the fact it was trading at 0.006 cents a coin. Now, back then, that project in particular stood out to me because it was the only crypto that was specifically tied to finance and wanted to not only work in the financial space, but work in the existing financial parameters of banks and financial institutions. And back then, for me, it's like, well, if banks and financial institutions want to utilize blockchain technology, well, there's only one crypto available that could do that, and that's XRP. And sure, other finance-based cryptos have come along in the years that followed, but none have the same level of scope and possibility that XRP does. And this brings me to my next point. Back in 2017, you're looking at the only crypto in finance. It's the number one crypto in finance, and it's the only crypto that actively wants to work in the banking and financial systems. XRP has amazing possibilities and an amazing future ahead of it if it actually does get adopted into banks and financial institutions around the world. But you look at it and it's worth only 0.006 cents a coin. Now, if it's the only crypto in finance and it can do amazing things, shouldn't it be worth more? And that brings me to my next simplistic point, and the thing that I always keep in the back of my mind, which is XRP is cheap until it's not. And it's funny, I made a video where I mentioned that and people lost their minds. They were like, that's really stupid. That's so oversimplified. It really upset people. I'm like, well, it's the truth of it. You know, back in 2017, XRP was worth less than 1 cent a coin. No one knew that in less than a year, by 2018, it would not only go to $3 plus, but it would flip Bitcoin and Ethereum and take the lead as the number one crypto in the space. And that was the first example of the end of an alt season. It was the first example of XRP being cheap until suddenly it wasn't. And people had extreme FOMO. They now desperately wanted this finance-based crypto that a year ago people were saying, don't buy it. There's no way a banking-based crypto, one that actually wants to work with legislators and regulations, no one's going to want that crypto until it does over 100x. And this has been replicated time and time again. And once again, this is why it's so important, and this is why I've turned to a more simplistic, common sense approach when it comes to XRP specifically, but also crypto in general, is that you could have as many fancy charts and as many fancy, algorithmic statements, as many fancy acronyms as you want, as much scientific, fancy jargon, data points, whatever you want to have. No one saw that level of parabolic run coming. And that's why it's really important in 2025 to look back on where the market has started and where it's going, to understand that the majority of people really don't know what they're talking about when it comes to crypto. The most important thing you could have under your belt is time in the market. And that gives you the most common sense and the most anxiety-free perspective when it comes to crypto and where we're going. And look, don't get me wrong, days like today, when the market's still trading sideways and it's still down, that frustrates me, that annoys me. But it doesn't mean I get shaken out. And it doesn't mean I get suckered into what everyone's talking about in a negative way. And what I did when the market was rapidly growing and changing is that I had to kind of abandon all these fancy things that people were pushing and look at the reality of where the market was going. And once we got to 2020 and 2021, look at how the market played out again with the Bitcoin halving, the post-halving bull run, and then the second leg up of the bull run, which was the alt season. And even with the Ripple versus SEC lawsuit, XRP still went from 10 cents to 15 cents to 19 cents to $1, $1.65, $1.80. That's still remarkable. That's still a parabolic run. And instead of panicking between 2018 and 2020, I spent that time growing and accumulating not just my XRP, but other cryptos as well. And so when the alt season kicked in, I didn't touch my XRP for profits, but I had a bunch of other cryptos that did exceptionally well, and I could finally take some really great profits. But if I'd listened to all the technical analysis experts and all the so-called crypto experts, then I wouldn't have made any profits in 2020. Because even the cryptos that I accumulated back when they were first being listed in 2018 and 2019, these were all projects that people either had no clue what they were talking about, had no information on these projects, or were outright saying, do not touch these projects for whatever the reasons were. The same rhetoric and the same narratives I heard in 2017 when it came to XRP. Even the same narratives I heard in 2017 when it came to Ethereum. There's always people with a million reasons why you shouldn't accumulate or shouldn't take a chance on a crypto. And unfortunately, XRP has been that crypto ever since 2017 till now. There's always been a reason year after year after year. And you know what? These people have been proven wrong every step of the way. And the reason why I say this, it isn't to pat myself on the back and go, wow, I made some great profits. It's that I've learned the hard way. I've had to learn the very, very hard way that, you know what? There are going to be a million strategies that work for other people. Some people love, like I said, the technical analysis. Some people love the more scientific, data-based approach to crypto. Some people treat it more like gambling. They leverage trade, whatever it is that people do. For me, I just look at it and go, the best results I've ever seen and the results that have worked for me are just identifying good projects, accumulating no matter what anyone else says, and holding and waiting to see what happens in the bull run and the alt season. And I know that's not the exciting perspective everybody wants to hear, but it's the perspective and the decisions and the plans I've made year after year, and they've always paid off, especially with XRP. Now, for me, I haven't been a content creator during the first two bull runs, but the third one, leading up to the third one, absolutely started building my content and my channel. And for years I was talking about XRP was going to start skyrocketing when we got to October heading into November of 2024. And I started to receive directly now, not just reading about it and experiencing it from an outsider's point of view, but experiencing it directly as a content creator. People now targeting me and saying, you don't know what you're talking about, XRP's dead, that's not the way crypto works, like every excuse why it wasn't going to happen. And sure enough, because I've been through two bull runs, the third one started playing out exactly the same way. XRP starts skyrocketing in November of 2024, and it goes from 50 cents to over $1 to $2 to $2.50, $2.60, $2.70. And as it always happens, all the negative voices go away. And then so many people are left there going, well, I trusted the technical analysis people, I trusted the so-called crypto experts, and I trusted the influencers. And now people are sitting there and they don't even have XRP. Or they've sold their XRP for something else. Or they've got a really small XRP bag and now they're looking at XRP effectively having done a 10x, a 20x. And they're sitting there going, well, I wish I'd done things differently. I wish I'd bought more XRP. Or I wish I hadn't sold my XRP. They're always filled with regret. And I know I received a bunch of DMs from people who had been holding for such a long time, who just were so ready to give up, and they had been listening to my content. They were like, I'm so glad I stuck in there. Or other people who had said to me I was a lunatic or I had no idea what I was talking about. And they would message me and apologize, and they go, you're one of the few people who've been talking about this for years and years, and it finally happened. And then here we are in a new situation. And this brings me back to my initial statement about being as simplistic as possible. And it brings me to my third point, which is you have to have a plan when it comes to crypto. A short-term, mid-term, and long-term plan. And you have to be flexible and be able to pivot within that plan. Now, it's interesting, initially for me, my plan was based around the second leg up, the alt season happening second week of Jan and finishing end of March or end of April. And here we are now, we're seeing the market pretty much still in this downtrend, trading sideways. It goes up a little bit, but then it kind of hovers there, and we're not really seeing the alt season that we want or expect around this time period. And that's why I made some content recently saying, hey, I've pivoted. I've realigned my time frame, but it hasn't changed the foundation of my plan. Just because the bull run and the alt season has been delayed doesn't mean I don't think XRP can't do $5, $10, $20, maybe more. And you're going to see people say, oh, but you're moving the goalposts, no, now you think this, you think that. It's like, yeah, you have to be flexible. The same way we were all trying to figure things out in 2017 when no one had any information, it's the same way right now where the market's not performing the way we hoped it would. So you have to be flexible. You have to be able to pivot and not panic. That's why it's so important to have a plan. If you have a short-term, mid-term, long-term plan, especially when it comes to projects like XRP that haven't reached their full potential yet, then when the market doesn't perform the way you hoped it would, at least you can pivot and you can still have plans, you can still have your same goals, but your foundation doesn't shake. It's the same way as if we had a plan. Let's say you have a long-term plan for XRP to hit $10,000 a coin. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but let's say 2 weeks from now it goes to $10,000. You're not going to completely panic and just throw your hands in the air and give up because it didn't play out the way you planned it. No, you adapt and you go, great, I now have some better take profit opportunities. It works both ways. The most important thing to remember is there can be a more common sense, simplistic approach to crypto. But more importantly, it has to be a plan that works for you. And no matter what anyone else says, it just has to be about what works for you. It doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. It doesn't even matter what I'm doing. What matters is what makes sense to you, what works for you. So have a plan, have a conservative plan, have a crazy plan, have a bunch of take profit points, have your short-term, mid-term, long-term take profit goals. And while all that is being prepared for and you're making your plans and you're making your take profit strategies, also have that strong foundation. Put the work in now so you can continue to pivot and you can continue to adapt as the market unfolds. So when those take profit opportunities come along, you're ready to take advantage of them. And this is especially important when it comes to XRP, because these take profit opportunities are not just found in an alt season, they're found in a utility run as well. So if you have a foundation and you've considered taking profits at $10, $20, and then potentially $100, $1,000, maybe even more, regardless of when that plays out, you have that foundation to work off, and you're putting yourself in the best position possible. So when the market starts moving, when XRP starts going parabolic, you're in that best position possible to take some profits. Now, as I said, ladies and gents, none of this is financial advice. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if you're curious about the other cryptos I hold outside of XRP, consider becoming a Patreon. Click the link in the description below, head across to my Patreon page, and consider becoming a Barry C VIP. There you'll have access to all my cryptos, as well as my buy, sell, and take profit signals in real time.